Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Moeller-Poppitt, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change podcast. I'm your host, Cara Moeller-Poppitt, and I'm delighted to be here with a dear friend, Steven Pivnik. I would love to introduce you formally, Steven, and give the audience a little sneak peek of what you're all about, because you're so humble, you're so down to earth, you're so hardworking, you're so brilliant, you're athletic, you take on challenge and change, and I just want to let everyone know we're in for a treat. So Steven Pivnik is an international keynote speaker, best-selling author, business advisor, and serial entrepreneur specializing in the information technology market. He grew his last company, Binary Tree, to over 200 employees across 12 countries before successfully exiting to a $4 billion competitor, Quest Software. As a trusted business advisor, Steven partners with leaders on how to achieve similar business success and perseverance in the entrepreneurial journey. Steven's endurance sports experience gives him an unparalleled perspective. You guys, I can't even outdance this guy on what it takes to overcome challenges and achieve remarkable success. He has competed in the Ironman World Championship, numerous ultramarathons, and is on his way to summit the tallest peaks on each continent. His blend of practical business advice and inspirational storytelling leaves audiences energized and motivated to go the distance in business and life. Steven, welcome to the podcast.
Cara, thank you so much for having me. I'm exhausted just listening to that introduction about myself.
It is always weird, right? When you have someone read it, then you take a moment to go, oh yeah, like I have done all this stuff and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's been a wonderful ride so far.
Yes. And Steven, I loved your book, Built to Finish.
Thank you.
Very, very, very inspiring. I'd love to kind of start there with what called you to write this incredible book. And I know you've had an interesting entrepreneurial journey, so we'll talk about that. But first, jump into the book, because I want our audience to know about your book and, more importantly, purchase a copy of your book.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's interesting. The reason for the book is actually one of the reasons how you and I met. When COVID was finally over and trade shows started coming back, I went to a trade show to support one of my clients in the IT space. And the keynote speaker was a guy by the name of Ed Viesturs. Ed Viesturs is a really well-known mountain climber. He's accomplished a ton of feats, including summiting all of the highest peaks without supplemental oxygen. And when I heard him on stage, sharing his story, it was so inspirational and motivational. I really enjoyed it. And then at the end, he promoted his book. And I said, you know what? I've got a pretty inspirational and motivational story that I love to share. I love to inspire others. And in order to build up credibility to get on a stage, I felt that I needed to write a book memorializing my story. So that was the genesis of the entire project, just hearing somebody inspirational on stage and thinking that to build that credibility, I've always wanted to write a book, but I never really had a real reason to. Mm-hmm. And he gave me that motivation and inspiration to finally start putting my story on paper.
I love that. It's so interesting, Steven, how there's always a ripple effect, right? Like you go to an event, you hear inspiration, and he was trying to, share his wisdom, and it inspired you to take action and, do the thing that's hard. Writing a book is so hard. And also you are inspiring many people. Tell us a little bit about Built to Finish.
Sure. So in Built to Finish, I basically take the reader on two journeys. I've had a really interesting entrepreneurial ride. Several failures, one really big success, and some other successes along the way. And I've also taken up endurance sports as I call it my midlife crisis. Not that I was in bad health, but I wanted to to get into the best shape of my life. So, and the two journeys kind of intertwine with a ton of similarities, right? Between planning, perseverance, stamina, setbacks, pivots. There's so many similarities between entrepreneurship and endurance sports that as each chapter basically shares stories of successes and failures and lessons learned on my entrepreneurial journey and my endurance sports journey. Like you mentioned, my road to Kona, which was the Ironman World Championship, which took me like 12 or 13 years to get into, but I finally did it. And the journey to sell my company, which took me 26 years, and I finally did it. So it memorializes both of those journeys with many lessons learned and tips and tricks.
And I love the inspiration you provide, because a lot of success, even, meeting you, is like, wow, like you've done all these things. And we always compare and contrast, and we never know someone's story, right? Like you started in your mom's basement and you developed this huge tech company. And it was just a testament to hard work and pivoting, right? Like really understanding the importance of setting a goal, pivoting when needed, and perseverance to continue. So congratulations and well done on that, Steven. I hope you take it in just to realize what an inspiration you are.
No, I definitely do. And I love it when people reach out to me after reading the book. And what's really interesting is how surprised they are when I respond to them. And so like I've received multiple emails saying, "Hey, this book was so inspiring. I'm finally going to do X, right? Whatever X is for them." And then when I respond with, "Thank you for the feedback. Best of luck on X." They respond back like, "Oh my God, you responded." I'm like, "Why wouldn't I respond?"
That's because you're down to earth. That's the human side that I really appreciate about you. I love that you compare entrepreneurship to, intense sports, and the paradigm between that, I think, is really the mindset to keep going. Talk to me about your mindset when you did your hardest Ironman, or that you climbed Mount Everest, right? Like, talk to me about that.
Right. So, wow, as soon as you said Mount Everest, I got chills because Mount Everest is actually on the agenda. So I'm leaving on April 25th. It's exactly 108 days away from today. Not that I'm counting.
No big deal.
Yeah, I've done several of the other high summits, but Mount Everest is next. That's going to be the hardest, but the others were just as hard.
Yes.
As far as mindset goes, um, it was just a ton of perseverance. And I mean, I hate to use my own terminology, but it was a built to finish mindset, right? When I set out to accomplish a specific goal, I tried to do everything humanly possible to make sure that goal is achieved. In the racing world, probably I would say Kona, the World Championship, was one of the hardest venues because of the heat, humidity, and winds on that course. I mean, every Ironman race is hard just because of the crazy distances. It's 140 miles total of swimming, biking, and running. But when you're doing it in 90-degree heat, 90% humidity with unrelenting winds, it becomes an incredible ordeal out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not a professional athlete. I'm what they call an age grouper. So it makes it even that much harder that I started this crazy hobby at the age of 40 with very little athletic background prior to that. So it made for a really, really tough and challenging day. But throughout it, I just kept reminding myself, why I did it, how long I've been striving, for this goal. And no matter how hot, hard, or hilly or windy it got, I wasn't going to let that get in the way between me and a finish line. And 15 and a half hours after I started, I crossed that finish.
I can't even imagine that. Holy Hannah. Sorry, I thought you already did the Everest. I know you were talking about it. So that's coming up in 100 days. I can't wait to watch the journey there. Talk to me about the mindset. Like, I can't even imagine, like, even after an hour and a half, fitness class, I'm like, I'm done. But what do you tell yourself? Like, what goes on in your head when you're, 2 hours in, and then, you got to keep going? Like, what are the messages? You just keep saying, I'm built to finish. I'm built to finish. Or like, what helps you take on that big challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the training for me is as enjoyable as the actual race. I mean, I love the journey as much as the destination. I think I keep saying that, the journey is really where the gold is. The race itself, and crossing that finish line, is the cherry on top. But, adopting a healthy lifestyle, eating right, exercising incredibly often, exercising really, really hard, makes for an incredibly, while painful at times, an enjoyable journey if you keep that end in mind. So when those workouts get hard, and trust me, those 4 to 6 hour bike rides or the 2 to 3 hour runs, they get really, really tedious and hard. But I just continuously remind myself, why I'm doing it, and reminding myself that if I finish this workout, it's going to make race day go that much smoother and easier.
Do you ever feel unmotivated when you wake up to work out? Like, do you ever have days where you just want a lazy day, or that doesn't happen to you?
I'm totally human, and it definitely happens. But I'm really, really happy that those days are in the minority, in the tiny, tiny percentile. And they say it takes 60 days to develop a habit. It requires a ton of willpower to, wake up to that alarm clock at 5 o'clock in the morning and go for like a 2 hour run. But once you get over that willpower and that turns into a habit, then your body just automatically reacts and does it, because because a habit is so much easier to execute than something that requires a lot of thought and a lot of willpower.
I love that. Steven, something I talk about in the book, Big Freaking Change, is when you do go through the journey, you get to the destination point, your viewpoint of what is possible and your goals and your mindset also expand. So it's not always just the destination, it's the journey. But when you get to that destination point, as a high achieving person, do you always have that moment of like, what's next for me?
Al- Almost always. And
Yeah.
go like everybody that races, whether it be marathons, triathlons, or other endurance races, everybody will say the same exact thing. It's incredibly painful while you're doing it. And many times, at least I say to myself, why am I here? And this is the last time. I've done this enough. I'm 55. I don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore. This is going to be my last one. The
Mhm.
second I cross that finish line, literally like within minutes, I'm already thinking, okay, what other event am I going to sign up for? Or like what other, city am I going to do the same race in? Or what other challenge am I going to? Because it's just such an incredible feeling of accomplishment when you
Yeah.
finally get it done. And also going back to my analogy between endurance sports and entrepreneurship, they really feed off of each other, because when you're in a really, really dark place during a race and you don't know if you're going to make it to the end, at least me personally, I look back at some of those days where I had no idea how I was going to make payroll the next month.
Mm.
And there was literally 99% chance of, declaring bankruptcy. But somehow, some way, every time those opportunities arose, we figured it out and we made payroll. And, that gives me a little bit of extra oomph, to go the next mile. And then from that mile, I take care of the following mile, et cetera, and vice versa. So the two, in my mind, they feed off of each other so nicely and so complementary.
I love that. Steven, when people are considering starting a business, what is kind of your best advice for entrepreneurs, having been a successful entrepreneur yourself, growing it from ground zero, taking everything you have to make it and create this beautiful life for not only yourself, your family, your employees, a legacy as well. An author, an inspirational keynote speaker, like all of these things. But talk to me about, your best advice if someone's wanting to make a big freaking change. Maybe they want to leave their job and start their own business.
Sure. I think if I had to narrow it down to one single piece of advice, I would say don't do it alone. Surround
Mm,
yourself with people that have been there and done that before, and get their advice. I think a lot of people, myself included, love to pay it forward. And I think a lot of folks are hesitant to ask for help because they feel that it's a sign of weakness, that, they want to be bold, right? They want to be proud of this great step that they're taking, for themselves and their families, et cetera. There's absolutely no shame in asking for help and asking for advice, because, people want to pay it forward. And it's really, really easy to make a ton of mistakes, which is why the vast majority of new endeavors fail. So if you won't be alone if you make a ton of mistakes. Mistakes are totally fine.
mhm.
But yeah, to summarize it, get advice from people that have been there, done that, because um, otherwise it's going to be super scary and fraught with challenges and mistakes that you can probably avoid.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you too. Like surrounding yourself with good people that are aligned. That's really where I'm at in my business is, alignment is really where the magic is. And if you can find a team that has this great synergy, you don't all have to be the same. You can be different. That's actually the beauty of it. But you have alignment with vision and your goals. I think you're a very courageous person, Stephen. And I would love for you to kind of define courage and how, what it means to you. Where did it come from? Your insight on courage.
Yeah, I think my courage came from watching courage, right? I think you get courage by watching it. I'm an immigrant. My family came to this country from the former Soviet Union when I was three years old. So I literally, watched my parents and grandparents uproot an entire family and go to this, uncharted land called the United States of America after, living in Italy for 6 months waiting for our visas. So we actually gave up citizenship in the where we came from. We didn't have any right to go anyplace else. And we were housed by this association in Italy while awaiting our paperwork. That Italy was like the central processing um, location, Rome act specifically for immigrants, coming into the United States in the early 70s. So I watched incredible courage, right? I watched incredible perseverance. In my book, I call it the grind. Like you learn the grind by watching the grind. And I saw what my parents and grandparents had to go through, to get us here, to put food on the table when we were here, and to basically go after the American dream. So I guess I picked it up by watching it, but to define it, I would say it's courage is having the will to start something super exciting for the right reasons, and to have the perseverance to see it through whatever types of setbacks you may encounter.
So true. We got to just keep the perseverance when we have those setbacks because they always happen, right? My philosophy in big freaking change is that most people wait to feel ready before they take action and do the thing. And my main message is that readiness doesn't exist. And it's not a state of a being, but it's a feeling that comes after you take action. Confidence is a result for taking action. And I feel like you're living proof of that. Talk to me about maybe your biggest freaking change you've made and how your confidence shifted.
Before I answer that, real quick. Once I heard that term from you, and when you and I were discussing your book project, and I've seen it several times since, I finally got the courage to start my own podcast, because
Oh,
this is something
yes.
that I've been thinking about and talking about for ever since the book came out, which is almost a year now. People have been telling me to start a podcast on that theme, built to finish, and interview audacious goal setters. And I kept telling myself, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. I kept giving myself excuses. And I'm not the type of guy to give myself excuses. I jump in with both feet most of the time, but something was holding me back. And I heard that phrase from you, and I'm like, screw it. What the Richard Branson terms, screw it, let's do it. And
Yes.
I started my podcast. So thank you very much for that
Oh,
inspiration.
I love that. Thank you for telling me. We all need these reminders, right? We got to get out of our own way. And sometimes feeling ready is an excuse for staying stuck. And when we can understand, confidence will come later, we just got to do the thing. So
Right.
it's really cool. Talk to me about the biggest change you've made and how your confidence has shifted.
Wow. I've gone through so many different pivots and changes in my life. I think from a career perspective, the biggest change I made was realizing that there may be somebody better than me able to run my company and to take it forward to that proverbial finish line, right? A lot of founders find their identity wrapped up in the company that they founded and they're running. And I think it took a lot, and I'm very proud of myself. And I advise others to consider this, not necessarily do it every single time, but to consider bringing in a professional CEO to run their baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my company was literally my first child. I started my company, then we had our first daughter, and then 5 years later we had our second daughter. So my company was child number one to me.
Yeah.
And in order to hand over the reins to somebody else to run it as CEO took a lot. It was a huge change for me personally, but it paid off in spades.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And when you made this decision to start your business and hire the CEO, did your confidence shift in that process? Like, did you have moments of insecurity? And then after this person was leading, you were like really confident in the decision, and therefore you were confident in your life. Like how was that process for you, Steven?
No, that's a great question. So I wasn't ready to jump in with both feet in terms of that specific move. So I hired him first as a COO, so Chief
Mm-hmm.
Operating Officer, kind of second in command. And I said to myself that I would give it a year, witness how he operates, witness what type of, leadership he puts forward, what kind of command, what kind of respect he commands from the troops, etc. And I thought it would take a year. Within 3 months, I knew that this was the right person for the job. And I stepped aside. I promoted myself to executive chairman. You can decide. I can either say I fired myself or I promoted myself to executive chairman, and I let him run the day to day. And that just gave me what gave me a lot of confidence was that somebody of that caliber actually accepted the position. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People that are professional CEOs that have a track record of success, they can pretty much write their own ticket. And for that individual to accept a position with me and my company just gave me a lot of confidence that because he's seen it before and he knows what to do. They all seasoned executives have playbooks that they operate under,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he accepted a position with me was really, really flattering.
Awesome. When you grew your company, I haven't had a chance to chat with you about this. I didn't even realize how big it was. I knew it was big, but 200 employees in 12 countries. How do you scale to that level? And was that always your vision, or was it did it unfold?
I wish I can say that it was my vision. We were a victim of our own success. We came up with some pretty niche technology, which I won't bore your audience with. It had to do with email systems and converting data for large scale email platforms. And we became a victim of our own success because email is like the number one productivity tool in the world for any company. And because every single large company runs email systems and email systems are continuously going through change and our software facilitated those changes, we became a victim of our own success and we were dragged internationally into Asia, into all these countries. So we ended up having employees in 12 countries, but we serviced, almost, every country that
Wow.
houses large corporations.
Okay. Wow. And what's on the horizon for you now? You're retired. Yeah,
Semi.
I know. Yeah,
Not,
you probably still. I'm like, I don't know if an entrepreneur ever retires.
it,
You
it,
do.
it,
Yeah.
I was retired for 1 year and I got incredibly bored.
Yeah.
So I've benefited tremendously from advisors, especially towards the tail end of my company's life, the last 3 years.
Hmm.
So I'm basically paying it forward in the entrepreneurial community and advising other founders that were in my shoes, basically founders of companies that have been around for over 10 years that, feel stuck, that really want to finally realize the value of what they created via some sort of exit, whether it be a strategic acquisition or a private equity recapitalization. A lot of founders want to achieve that, but they don't necessarily know how and the only reason is because they've never done it before. And talk about landmines and problems and mistakes. The process of scaling and preparing for a sale is very complicated and with a large opportunity to make some very, very expensive mistakes. So I'm really, really enjoying, paying it forward. And it's so rewarding doing this now through the lens of an advisor versus being in the CEO seat. So, and just
Yeah.
watching them avoid the landmines that I stepped upon and avoiding the mistakes that I made in the past and helping them
That's
see the company
wonderful.
through an exit is so rewarding to me. So I'm really,
Hmm.
really enjoying doing that.
That's wonderful. Stephen, did you have a lot of mentors growing up that helped you and paid it forward to you, or where did that heart come in that you wanted to serve and pay it forward?
Unfortunately, I was guilty of what many founders are. I thought I knew it all and nobody can do it better than me. Right. So I did not seek counsel from others and I continued to, march forward to the beat of my own drum. And I mean, I had other partners that, fortunately, unfortunately, felt the same exact way. We were going to get this done by ourselves. And it really wasn't until the later stages of my company's life that I realized what I just said, that it's so much easier to grow and to accomplish great things if you surround yourself with people that have been there and have done that before.
Hmm. When entrepreneurs get stuck, I use the word a lot in my book about being stuck. we often can feel disconnected, unfulfilled, and, they want to make a change. They just don't know how. But when you experienced an entrepreneur feeling stuck, what are some of the traits or what are some of the characteristics that you notice?
When you're hemming and hawing over a decision, when you're losing sleep over a specific decision, when in the business world, a lot of challenges/opportunities lay with executive staff, right? Because you have folks that are, especially if you're a growing company, you have folks that are responsible for various areas of your company, and they're the ones that are responsible for moving it forward. And when progress isn't being made, it's really easy to start getting super, super frustrated about it. And the answer really lies in a better qualified person to go and get whatever it is you're hemming and hawing about achieved.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of founders and entrepreneurs make the mistake of, sticking by their friends and family who were with them from day one. And while those folks were probably great for the companies for that stage of the company or an earlier stage, they're rarely a good fit for a company in a later stage. And that causes a ton of frustration for founders and CEOs. And those are some tough decisions that need to be made. But when they are, the company benefits.
Yes, I agree with you fully. I think sometimes as founders, we stop reimagining our business. We just keep operating the way it has been. And that can also cause us to feel stuck. Steven, I talk a lot about when we change in one area of our life. So let's say for you, business, you change in your business success or your operations, it often will ignite change in other areas. So it could be your family, it could be what you do on your social time. Talk to me about what you notice when you experience a change in one area, even the mindset of like, I'm going to Everest, like after Everest, like there should be a pre-Everest and a post-Everest, right? But talk to me about kind of the changes that you notice or when you get more fit, how that impacts your mental clarity, your business decisions, all of that.
Yeah, it's really easy when you become successful in one area of your life to start applying that success to other areas and to start thinking differently about other areas. Like, for example, I finally made the decision I was pushing off Everest for a while because I wanted to complete the other six of the 7 summits first, and I was saving Everest for last. Then I said, you know what? There's no reason to save it for last. I can do Everest and the others if I still want to. And I finally, I put that on, I applied, I got accepted. It's not an easy feat to get accepted to Everest, especially if you don't want to die. People that go by themselves, those are the ones that end up in trouble. If you go with a super, super reputable company, you have to go through an application process to get accepted. And the chances of success and survival go through the roof, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so once I started dreaming big on the mountain front and finally put a line in the sand for when I'm going to go hit the tallest peak in the world, I said, you know what? I've got to dream bigger in other areas of my life as well. You know more than most, my ambition to get on the stage. And I was really taking baby steps to get on the stage. And I found that, once I put my plans for Everest into play, that I started accelerating plans for, that area of my life as well. So fingers crossed, I'll get to the top of the world and to many stages next year. Or sorry, it's this year. It's January.
It's this year. Yeah, you absolutely are. I still remember rehearsal and it was like, all the different environments you had to run in. It was great seeing that and seeing that growth in you, right? Like it's so true that when we flex the courage muscle in one area of our life, it does transpire to others. And I could be a little bit ballsy in saying that you postponed Everest because you just didn't feel ready, right? Like you were like, let me do these other ones and then I'll feel ready. But I feel like, who am I to say comment on that when it's such an extreme opportunity? And
no, but I love your phrase, and that definitely applies here. I'll be ready when I'm done.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to supporting your journey, Steven. Where can our listeners find you? Where can we purchase our book and any information that we can connect with you?
Sure. So links to everything in my life, all my social media handles, the Amazon book page, my blog, my podcast are all available off of my website. So that's stevenpivnik.com.
Perfect. Any final words of wisdom for people that are wanting to make a big freaking change in their life?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to combine the title of your book with my book.
Yeah.
There's no better time to make a big freaking change, to find your next finish line, whatever that may be. You're not going to find it if you don't start the journey and without some serious changes. So there's plenty of evidence out there, Cara, myself, that have made changes and have seen great results, and there's millions of others like us. So go ahead, make that change, and you'll be amazed at how quickly that finish line comes into view.
Well said, my friend. Well, thank you, Steven, for being with us today. We encourage all of our listeners to start taking action and stop waiting. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.